Government deception. In the chilling quiet of a classified memo, a plan was laid bare. Operation Northwoods, a proposal for the US government to commit acts of terror against its own citizens and military, then blame another country to justify a war. The plan was rejected, but its existence reveals a terrifying truth. Deception by those in power isn't merely a relic of a bygone era of spies and secrets. It's a recurring and pressing challenge, one that shapes the very core of democracy today. It is a strategic tool, wielded in the shadows, with the power to destabilize nations and shatter the sacred bond between the governed and their government. From eroding public trust to destabilizing our most vital institutions, the long-term consequences are profound and far-reaching. The damage is not theoretical, it's measured in stark, undeniable numbers. Trust in government has plummeted to near-historic lows. As of mid-2024, data from the Pew Research Center reveals a grim reality. Only 22% of Americans believe the federal government does what's right most of the time, or just about always. This isn't just a statistic, it's a symptom of a deep-seated illness in the body politic. This collapse in confidence creates a vicious cycle. When people expect to be misled, every official statement, every data release, every public health recommendation is filtered through a lens of profound skepticism. It cripples the government's ability to respond to crises, to implement policy, and to simply govern. This erosion of trust seeps into the very foundations of our justice system. Deceptive practices within law enforcement, ranging from officers lying during interrogations to the manipulation of witness testimony, have become a documented source of profound injustice. Techniques designed to elicit confessions can often elicit false ones, preying on the vulnerable and coercing the innocent. Organizations like the Innocence Project have shown that false confessions contributed to nearly 30% of all wrongful convictions they have overturned with DNA evidence. Each case represents a life destroyed and a promise broken. When the guardians of the law resort to deceit, they don't just risk convicting the innocent, they weaken the civil liberties of everyone, transforming the presumption of innocence into a fragile suggestion. When truth feels manipulated, the public's natural response is to disengage. Why participate in a system you believe is rigged? Why cast a vote when you suspect the outcome is predetermined or that your leaders are not being honest? This civic apathy is a direct consequence of deception. Post-2024 election surveys paint a worrying picture. Nearly 70% of Americans reported that the flood of misinformation online made it significantly harder to access reliable election information. This isn't just an inconvenience, it's a barrier to informed consent, the very mechanism by which citizens hold power. The result is a hollowing out of our democracy, seen in dwindling voter turnout in local elections and the silent auditoriums of public forums. Deception is the fuel that feeds the fire of polarization. It carves society into factions, creating an us versus them mentality where shared facts cease to exist. When official narratives are proven false, a vacuum is created, and that vacuum is inevitably filled by suspicion, speculation, and conspiracy. Consider the decades-long, heavily redacted release of files related to President Kennedy's assassination. The slow drip of information and revelations of hidden CIA activity don't provide closure, they deepen suspicion. Similarly, the lack of transparency and unanswered questions surrounding high-profile investigations like the death of Jeffrey Epstein allow competing, often contradictory narratives to take root, pushing people further into their ideological camps. Official deceit gives oxygen to the dangerous idea that truth is merely a matter of opinion. Perhaps most insidiously, deception undermines the legitimacy of the very institutions designed to be our objective arbiters of fact. There is growing and alarming evidence of political interference in these trusted bodies. When statisticians at the Bureau of Labor are fired or pressured to alter economic reports, or when decades of climate data are quietly erased from government websites, a clear message is sent. Facts are manipulated for specific agendas. These institutions, from the CDC to NOAA, are meant to provide the unbiased data we need to tackle our most complex challenges. By compromising their integrity, officials are not just shaping a narrative. They are crippling our ability to solve problems, creating a chilling effect on the thousands of dedicated public servants who believe in telling the truth. This assault on truth doesn't just distort politics, it endangers human lives. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the world witnessed in real time how inconsistent messaging and political spin on scientific guidance could have lethal consequences. Shifting stances on masks, downplayed threats, and the promotion of unproven treatments sowed mass confusion and eroded trust in public health authorities at the most critical moment. This has a lasting impact. The National Institutes of Health, for example, now cites this very waning of public trust, rooted in the perceived mismanagement and politicization of the pandemic, as a key factor in its strategic planning, including its approach to future vaccine rollouts. When people can't trust the science because they don't trust the source, the consequences are measured in hospitalizations and preventable deaths. Trust is the invisible infrastructure of a healthy society. It is the backbone of economic stability and the prerequisite for equitable policymaking. When trust evaporates, so does investor confidence. If economic data on inflation or unemployment is seen as a political tool rather than an objective metric, markets become volatile and unpredictable. Furthermore, deception is often a tool to maintain unjust systems. When data on racial disparities in policing, environmental pollution in low-income neighborhoods, or gaps in educational funding is suppressed or distorted, it becomes impossible to craft policies that address these inequities. Without a shared foundation of facts, data-driven initiatives crumble, economic systems become vulnerable, and the goal of a more just and equitable society remains tragically out of reach. Today's deep-seated skepticism was not born in a vacuum. It is a scar formed over decades of broken promises. From Watergate, where a criminal cover-up reached the Oval Office and shattered a nation's faith in the presidency, to the justifications for the Iraq War, built on flawed intelligence about weapons of mass destruction that led the country into a costly and divisive conflict. History is littered with these pivotal moments of betrayal. The Tuskegee syphilis study, the Iran-Contra affair, each deception, whether disclosed by a whistleblower or uncovered by journalists, adds another layer to the thick wall of public distrust. It is a cumulative weight, a collective memory that makes the challenge of rebuilding that trust so monumental. The cost of deception is therefore not just lost trust, it's a weakened democracy, a fractured society, stalled scientific progress, and a justice system compromised. It is the erosion of our shared reality. But the damage is not irreversible. The path to healing is clear, though not easy. It begins with a radical commitment to transparency, strengthening whistleblower protections, and demanding open access to information. It requires unwavering accountability, ensuring that there are real consequences for officials who mislead the public. And most of all, it demands a renewed collective commitment to the pursuit of truth, from government and from ourselves. Rebuilding what has been broken is the great challenge of our time.